I thought I had probably made my last episode about bread the last time I spoke about this subject, but here I am doing a follow-up. And it's mostly because this very kind listener to the podcast, also a supporter of this podcast, got in touch with me by leaving a comment and explaining that the bread in South Korea is the same as the bread in Japan, and also went on to explain why that is. Now, I'm not going to say this person's name because I'm not sure if I have permission to or not, but I'm sure you know who you are, so thank you very much for your comment. Anyway, this person went on to say that bread is not like the staple. It's not the sort of main food that's eaten in Japan and South Korea. That would, of course, be rice. So bread is seen more like a sort of dessert, and that's why it's sweet. I thought this was really interesting because I'm aware that bread first came to Japan from Portugal. Portugal being one of the earliest trading partners that Japan had. And I think the word for bread in Portuguese, if I'm not mistaken, is pan. And the word for bread in Japanese is pan. So it's just the same. Now, interestingly, I have been to Portugal. It's a very, very nice country. And I did buy some local white bread from a supermarket, not from a bakery or anything. And that bread was very sweet, and it tasted exactly like Japanese bread. So I had always assumed that the reason that the bread was sweet in Asia, in East Asia, is because it had been introduced as sweet bread. And maybe this is true. So I suppose if it's introduced to you as sweet bread, then you're probably going to think, yeah, this is sort of for dessert. Anyway, whenever someone contacts me about an episode, it always makes me think more about what it is that I've said in the episode. And in the last episode where I was talking about bread, and I was rather unkind, to be perfectly honest, to the bread that you can buy over here. And I felt that deserves some kind of an explanation, because I'm always worried that someone's going to misunderstand what I say, which is, would be of course only my fault. And actually no one has so far. I've never had an email or nobody's ever contacted me and said something like, oh, this is this, but actually it's this, or, tried to explain something. And I've been like, no, I didn't mean that. Sorry, I meant this. That's never happened. So maybe I am explaining things okay, but like I said, sometimes I worry that I'm not. So yes, I have moaned about the quality of white bread here in Japan, but I don't think I've also talked about the good side of bread. I don't think I've mentioned it at all, which is unfortunate. So I don't know why, but we, as humans, tend to sort of focus on negative things sometimes, because if the bread sold here was exactly like the bread in England, I wouldn't be having this conversation. I wouldn't have bought a bread maker, and so on and so on. But I think it's only fair that I also say that there are some really, really nice sweetbreads over here, especially if you go to a bakery and buy them. There's such a huge range of different types of breads that I've never seen before. And they are really nice, really, really nice indeed. And I think if you wanted to get the same quality of these sort of sweet breads, sort of Danish pastry type breads and all that kind of stuff. If you wanted to get that same level of quality in England, you'd probably be paying a lot of money to get it. Whereas over here, you can get some really nice, sort of sweet type breads, with nice fillings, sweet fillings, and all kinds of different flavors, and curry fillings and everything. And you can get it really, really cheap. So on one hand, I've lost a sort of I suppose my staple. I've lost that. I can't buy that easily, but I have gained access to all these delicious sweetbreads, and I did fail to mention that, or I have failed to mention that in the past. So I'd like to correct that now. Up until this point, I have been speaking exclusively about like sliced bread, like a loaf of bread. But when I say, I'm not a fan of the bread in Japan, I don't mean like all the sweetbreads and stuff like that. I was just talking about a loaf of bread. And if I was to explain the reason I don't like it, I mean, it's not just the fact that it's sweet, and I'm not used to having like sweet loaves of bread. It's sort of like the texture as well. I think you can probably get bread like that in the UK, somewhere from England. You'll have to go to a shop, like a very, very, very sort of like value type shop, and buy some brand of bread that you have never heard of. And it will be ridiculously cheap. I don't know, maybe like 40 pence or something. And it will just taste incredibly, maybe not sweet, but sort of like incredibly artificial. I don't know how to describe it really. But sort of like just very like made by machines, not sort of made in a bakery, not floury, just it's bread, but there's something like the sort of bready quality has been taken out of it somehow. And I think it's just a case that it's been made incredibly cheaply. Like I said, you'd have to buy it from this sort of like value store in the UK, and I don't know, it'd be made somewhere in England, but it would be made, the company would be trying to make it as cheaply as possible. And to be perfectly honest, that's what the loaves of bread taste like over here in Japan, which I think is a huge shame, because I believe if the company actually made the bread properly and didn't try to push out something really cheap, because I'm pretty sure it tastes cheap. And why wouldn't it? I mean, if you can make your product, if you can make your bread as cheap as possible and get people to pay as much as possible, and by the way, bread over here is really expensive too, then you get lots of money, don't you? So, of course, the companies are going to do that if they can. But I do think if they tried to make like really good bread, if that was their aim, let's make some amazing bread and charge a fair price for it, then I think people in Japan would be a lot more impressed by this different style of bread, and in South Korea too, perhaps. I don't know. It could be that I'm completely wrong and everyone loves the sweet type of, to me, sort of cheap tasting bread that you can buy in the supermarkets. Now, if I'm living in England, I have the reverse problem, because rice is not our staple, and trying to find good rice in England is also very, very hard. The only way you're going to get it is to go to some kind of import shop and get it. And in the past, I did go. There was like a Korean supermarket not too far from where I was living, but I think I had to drive about an hour to get there, 45 minutes to an hour to get there, and that's where I would go to buy rice. And I'd buy some very nice Korean rice, or sometimes I'd buy Japanese rice from this particular shop. But can you get nice rice from a supermarket in England? I don't really think so, no. In fact, before coming to Japan, I just thought that all rice was pretty much the same. Like every time I'd had rice, it always tasted like rice. There was no difference between the rice. I mean, maybe if I had like Indian style rice and it had like, I don't know, turmeric in, and yeah, obviously that tastes different. And the different kinds of like Indian rice you can have. But I thought like plain white rice just tasted like plain white rice wherever you are, until I came to Japan. And there was this one time that someone gave me some rice to try, and it was rice that they had grown in their own farm, and like I guess harvested it and then like polished it and gave it to me to try. So not from a supermarket at all, this. And it was amazing, I have to say. It completely changed my opinion of rice. I did not know that rice could taste so different, and that it could also taste so good. It was amazing. And in the same way, I think like, maybe if the companies in Japan made really, and Korea and like other places as well, other countries as well, if they made really great bread, maybe people would like it more, this other type of bread. I think if we could get like really good rice, like that kind of rice in the UK, maybe people would eat it more as well. And like me, they'd think like, wow, I didn't know rice could taste this good. Or you could get all these different kinds of rice. It's like, it's opened up the world of rice to me, which is very interesting. And obviously, I'm not trying to say English people should change their diet and, rice should become the staple or vice versa. I'm not trying to say the opposite should be true for people who live in Asia. I'm just saying, like, it's nice to be introduced to these things. It's nice to have them as an option. It's nice to have choice, isn't it? I think one of the things I like about food, well, I like eating food, but I mean, one of the things I like about food and like some of the sort of like recent changes, and I say recent, I mean like in the last however many decades, is all of the influence that different countries have seen from other countries. There was a time when we didn't have curry in the UK, when we didn't have Italian food, when we didn't have French cuisine, when we didn't have Japanese food and Korean food, and loads of different countries' food has come into the UK over recent years, over recent decades. And I think that's really good. It's opened up so many different dishes to be able to try, so many different recipes to explore, and I think it also gives people more of a connection to other places in the world. Like, oh, I've not been there, but I've had this food. It's sort of like sharing recipes with your friends, or, countries sharing recipes with each other, or sharing different foods with each other. I like that. So anyway, that was pretty much it for today's episode. I mostly wanted to just make sure that no one was misunderstanding me, and just be clear that yes, there is some very, very, very nice bread that I've had over here. Breads, I should say. Very nice breads, sweet breads, and things I brought from the bakery. I'm just talking about the typical sort of supermarket white loaf that I'm not so much a fan of. And I should also say that the brown bread that I have been experimenting with recently has been turning out very well, actually. And it's been very nice. And I shall probably make some more very soon, because we've just finished eating the last slice. It seems to disappear very, very quickly after it's been made. Anyway, until next time, I hope you are having a lovely day, and I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.